back to the channel. So, Maddie had an interview with Mark Darrah. All the Bioware fans, come on now. We're gonna watch the interview. This interview long as fuck. 40 more minutes in. There's still quite a bit to go in this interview. But look, I'm watching this. And he's talking, there's like hit piece articles about it already and stuff like that. And I'm listening. I'm listening, understanding. Because he was in there, then he was out of there, then he was back in there for a little bit. So like he's talking like around subjects, and he's like actually talking directly about some subjects. Maddie has some alright questions for him. And he this part, they're talking about Vilgar's like state. They're talking about like the state Vilgar was in. And he mentions that they were working on Vilgar. It was a live service game. They moved him to Anthem. Vilgar didn't even have leadership at that time. So it was a zombie game, and he's working on Anthem. Then they come back, work on Veilguard, and then the Mass Effect team comes to work on Veilguard while working on Mass Effect. And I'm like, what the fuck was going on over there? It's so crazy. It's so crazy, like how he just kind of describes the situation that was going on. Because look, when I was playing through Veilguard, you could see a whole lot of Anthem in Veilguard. There's sounds in Veilguard that when I was playing it on live stream, when I was playing it on videos, I was like, yeah, that's definitely from Anthem. Like the sounds of doors opening and closing. There's so many things. And he was like, yeah, the game is like kind of stitched together. It's like 3 games stitched together. And I'm like, damn. Like him saying it. I was saying this while I was playing through the game. And then there's the story that like the Mass Effect team, it created the ending of Veilguard. And the Dragon Age team didn't even get the help. And I was like, that's why the game changed so drastically. Me playing through the game, if y'all watch me play through the game, y'all can go watch me play through the game. It's up on the channel right now. But the drastic change from Act 2 to 3 was so substantial. It makes so much fucking sense that like the Dragon Age team didn't even work on the end of the game. The Mass Effect team did that shit. And I'm like, where the fuck was this shit in the first 2 acts? It was so crazy. But then you have to remember the first 2 acts were live service. So they couldn't do too much of like story deviation because it was live service. Everybody got to like experience the same things. And you were supposed to experience it as a collective. Then the Mass Effect team came in. It's like, oh, fuck that shit. They start wreaking havoc on Veilguard, and I was like, the ending of the game was so fucking crazy, still so impactful. I went back and I started playing through Veilguard again, and I realized I don't even want to play the first 2 acts. Like, over again, I wouldn't even want to play the first 2 acts. I would want to play Act 3 over again. Like, that and I'm like, ah, man, that puts Mass Effect in such a good place to know that they did that. Like, the best part of the game was the Mass Effect team. And I was like, fuck. The Mass Effect team. But that's why we've seen almost nothing of the next Mass Effect game. Because they were working on... Look, they were saying, like, hey, they went in there, they finished Veilguard, and they only worked on Mass Effect when they had time. So when the leadership went from Mass Effect to Dragon Age, the whole team went. They all worked on the end of the game. That's fine. They got that shit done. They went back to Mass Effect. But at the same time, they were slowly building Mass Effect pieces while they were working on fucking Veilguard. And I'm like, that's why we ain't seen shit, bro. That's why we ain't seen shit from the Mass Effect team. He also mentions that they talk about how, EA's a big company. Product margins, they got to go up all the time. And how Dragon Age has never been Mass Effect. Until it became the star of the show. Like when Dragon Age Inquisition came out, I talk about this a lot. That motherfucker sold buku fucking bucks. It became a big ass deal. It was the first Game Award winner, and that's the biggest gaming stage now. It was the first Game Award winner, Game of the Year, even though Mass Effect has won many Game of the Year awards. Those never was really... Game of the Year really wasn't a big ass deal until Dragon Age won Game of the Year from Jeff Keighley. That's when Game of the Year became like a big deal to a lot of developers. Because now it's this big ass stage. Everybody's applauding you. The whole industry's watching. Back in the day, you would just receive a couple Game of the Year awards from some random ass publishers around the world, and that was fine. You would get a good ass Metacritic score. That was fine. But now standing on stage with that goddamn angel lady, the winged lady, I don't know what the fuck the statue's for. But yeah, like that became a big ass deal. Inquisition was the first one to win it. Inquisition became a big ass deal. And then EA was like, there's no fucking going back. We gotta make this money, my nigga. And that's where the rest of this was going on. But when Inquisition was being created, he talked about this. They were working on Inquisition, they were working on Anthem, and the next Mass Effect all at the same fucking time. And I'm like, how the fuck was BioWare working on Inquisition, Anthem, and fucking Dragon Age, and the next Mass Effect all at the same time? So Andromeda ass was being created alongside Inquisition and Anthem. And I'm like, it makes so much fucking sense. He's like, now that they only have one team making one game at a time, it's probably going to be better for the game. And I'm like, the last team standing is the Mass Effect team. What they did at the end of Veilguard. I mean, I was already going to be hyped for the next Mass Effect game because I got that fucking collector's edition right there. I'm a fanboy anyway. But like, now knowing that that's the last team standing, that's the strongest team there, and now they don't have to share with the rest of the teams, I'm kind of happy about that. They talk about a lot of things in this video. They talk about a whole lot of things. He talked about how they tossed around the idea of remastering the first 3 Dragon Age games. And then he was like, yeah, like they just talked about it a little bit. They never tried to push it because it'd be so damn hard to invest in all that shit. Because either they would have to remake the whole fucking Origins in Dragon Age 2 inside Frostbite to match Dragon Age Inquisition, or they would just have to just throw a new coat of paint on the old ass games and have another team go in there and like fix the bugs and shit, trying to update it. And EA don't like to spend money. This whole freaking thing I've watched so far, the 41 minutes I've watched so far, has been chalked up to motherfuckers don't want to spend money. Industries don't want to spend money. EA doesn't want to spend money. Developers don't want to spend money. They don't want to risk the money is the thing. Like, risk aversion is 90% of this motherfucking interview. They dance around this topic a whole lot. Risk aversion is 90% of this motherfucking interview. Well, the 90% that I watched anyway. I got more to watch. I'm going to continue watching after I make this. But no, like, that shit was in fucking turmoil. Look, this nigga Mark Darrah mentioned the reason Casey fucking left. And he talked that shit so smooth into there and then just walked off. And I was like, hold on, bro. Maddie, press that nigga. Maddie did not press that nigga, bro. He's talking to Mark Darrah right now. He don't really care about talking about Casey ass. But he was talking about Inquisition was blowing the fuck up. They had Casey working on Anthem. Inquisition's blowing the fuck up. So, you know, all the DLCs and shit is getting made for Inquisition at this time because Inquisition is booming. So, look, Casey is the leader of the Mass Effect everything. He's been that nigga for a while. But when Dragon Age became Inquisition and it became a big ass thing, Casey start losing people, losing funding, and he's working on Anthem. So all the people start working on Dragon Age, and it's not that many people working on Anthem, and that nigga's like, what the fuck is going on? And he leaves the company. Because EA wouldn't hire more people. They wouldn't give Casey the funding he's so used to. So he can build his fucking game. And I'm like, that makes so much fucking sense. Because Casey's been at top of BioWare for a long ass time. You gotta remember, bro. Casey's been at the top of BioWare for a long time at this point. He's never been the second guy. Until Inquisition blows the fuck up. So he became second class in BioWare at EA for the first time, and he's making Anthem, and he's like, nah, nigga, we're not going like this. So him and EA got some infighting, and then he fucking leaves the company. And then Mark Darrah talks about before he left, he talked to like the EA rep that they report to, and it was like, how the fuck ain't you quit yet? Because they were going through the same situation after Anthem failed, and they're creating Veilguard and the next Mass Effect game, and the turmoil started happening again. Because they're working on Anthem, they're working on Veilguard, and they're working on the next Mass Effect. And it start happening again, and that's when he leaves the company. And then he's like, the rep he talked to was like, "How the fuck ain't you quit yet?" That's crazy when your boss asks you, "How the fuck ain't you quit yet?" There, there were systematic problems at the fucking at EA. There were systematic problems at EA, but the way he talks over that shit, I'm like, press that nigga, bro. I really need to know. I really need to know how the fuck the chain of command went, cause he said their chain of command was the BioWare team. You know, when they start putting people in charge, they put him in charge eventually, and then they reported to a nigga that reported to the sports side of EA. And I'm like, that don't make sense. It didn't. It didn't make sense, bro. Like the chain of command business part did not make any fucking sense when he said they reported to the sports side of EA. The basketball, the footballs, the soccers, the NHL. Y'all reported to the money making side of EA. That's why Dragon Age would never get the funding it deserved. That is why. Because Dragon Age wasn't making that, bro. Dragon Age wasn't making it until Inquisition, and then and only then did they get noticed. And when they got noticed by the vultures, that is the sports side of gaming, everything went downhill. And I'm like, those money making niggas start looking at y'all, bro. Inquisition, I said this so many times, Inquisition changed everything about BioWare, because BioWare was never the face of gaming until Inquisition. They always sold well, pretty well. They always had their core fan base. Motherfuckers were loving Mass Effect. They were loving Dragon Age from what we got. And then Inquisition came out. Because I know motherfuckers that bought Inquisition that never played Origins or 2. And that's when BioWare became this polarizing figure. And it was the death of them. And I'm like, damn, he confirmed all of that. He confirmed all of that. It's so crazy, bro. It's like, the interview is pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm a continue watching the rest of it, but like, damn, this is like the insight. The insight is actually, I still need to know what the fuck happened to Casey's new studio, because that motherfucker's gone. He kind of mentioned it. Like, people go, they make new studios, they get their funding, and then they just vanish. And I'm like, he's talking about KCS. He has to be talking about KCS, because he started a whole new studio. They had a whole new thing coming, and then they just fucking vanished. He's like the funding dried up. They vanished. They're gone. And I'm like, he has to be talking about KCS, bro. I need confirmation. But Maddie's not pressing this nigga on the good bits, the good bit of news. He want to talk about Veilguard failing. We don't care about Veilguard failing, bro. We know why Veilguard failed. It's an amalgamation. We can feel it playing the game. It was an amalgamation. It was still a pretty good game. It wasn't as horrible as people talked about. That's the problem. Like, Veilguard isn't as horrible as people talk about. Anthem was never as bad as people talked about. But they weren't as good as you would want them to be. But I would never call them trash games. Like, I played through Andromeda many of times. That game was never trash. Now, see, if Mass Effect, like, if the team right now, if they go remaster Andromeda right now and remove all of that fucking visual effect shit that they got, all those animations, you know how much better the game would feel? Do you know if you clicked on the planet and it went right to the cutscene of them just diving into the planet, like Calo-Ass flying the goddamn Tempest through the craziest winds and breaking atmosphere, if it went right to that after you clicked on the planet, Andromeda would be such a better game. It would be such a better game. They just need me in there. Need me in there. Let me lead the team. Nah, I ain't gonna be like that. But I'm in this right here. Make sure to like button, subscribe. I'm gonna go back to watching more of this, and I'll see y'all in the next one.